Good day, future educators. How are you? I hope that everyone is doing great. I hope that everyone is coping with all the outputs required in each subject you are enrolled in. Once again, welcome to our classroom. Hit the subscribe button and set the YouTube notification bell for you to be notified when a new video is uploaded. In today's video, we're going to talk about the performance-based assessment. So in the next few minutes, please be mindful of the following learning objectives. Number 1, define, explain comprehensively the performance-based assessment. Number 2, describe the features and types of performance-based assessment. Number 3, create a sample of performance-based assessment on the guidelines, features discussed, and lastly, perform a performance-based assessment sample through a group activity. Now, let's look into the different definitions of performance-based assessment or PBA from different scholars. A performance-based assessment measures a student's ability to apply the skills and knowledge learned from a unit or units of study. Typically, the task challenges students to use their higher order thinking skills to create a product or complete a process. That is from Chun in 2010. So remember that creating is in the highest level of thinking if we base it from the Bloom's taxonomy. The performance-based assessment requires each student not only to memorize facts, but to recite, draw, perform, and show understanding through creating, which makes the assessment fall under the higher level of thinking. Next one, it provides basis for a teacher to evaluate both the effectiveness of the process of procedure used and the product resulting from performance of a particular task. That is from Linn in 1995. A student's performance may lead to a concrete product applying required processes. Next one. Set of strategies for the acquisition and application of knowledge, skills, and work habits through the performance of tasks that are meaningful and engaging to students. Remember, as a teacher, the performance task that we should design should be relevant and meaningful. It should be engaging to the students as well, meaning it should allow every student to participate. Another definition, a method of teaching and appraising children based on how they carry out specific tasks or activities, as opposed to more traditional test formats. This approach allows children to demonstrate their knowledge and how they would apply it to the real-world scenarios. The best indicator of learning is the student's application in the real-life situations. How they engage with life and how they put their learnings into action is very important. Next one. It is a direct and systematic observation if the actual performance of students based in the predetermined performance requires students to produce an end result. Example, reports, a performance, or an experiment, which are scored against a set of criteria or what we call the rubric. So, in its simplest terms, a performance assessment is one which requires students to demonstrate specific skills and competencies that they have mastered by performing or producing something. Okay, let us look into the DepEd's emphasis on performance assessment. There are 3 components of summative assessment in the DepEd. These are the written works, the performance task, and the quarterly assessment. The quarterly assessment consists of, it may be an objective test, the performance-based assessment, or maybe a combination of the two. And among the 3 components, performance tasks contribute the most to a student's grade, which is, yes, it is 40 to 60%. So obviously, DepEd gives greater weight on the performance task. Okay. Now, let us look into what the DepEd says about the performance task components. DepEd says the students, may create or innovate products or do performance-based task. Performance-based tasks may include here, skills demonstration, group presentation, it can be oral works, multimedia presentation, and research projects. Okay, so performance task or performance-based assessment may come through this one is skills demonstration, group presentation, oral works, multimedia presentation, and research projects. It may be individual or it may be by group. Written output is also considered as a performance task. Example or essay, no? Example is a poem, okay, a poster, okay, a slogan. These are performance-based assessment. Okay. Now, let us look into Dale's cone of learning and see where the performance task is being placed. So, the cone of learning was theorized by Edgar Dale in 1960. The theory says that learners retain more information by what they do as opposed to what is heard or observed or read. So, his research have led to the development of the cone of experience. Now, let us look into this picture here. So, the cone of learning says that after 2 weeks, we tend to remember this one. 10% of what we read, so that falls under reading. 20% of what we hear. Okay, so when we hear words, 20% will retain. 30% of what we see, okay? And then 50% of what we hear and see, like watching a movie, looking at an exhibit, watching a demonstration, seeing it done on location. So 70% will be retained, okay? 70% of what we say. So, participating in the discussion or recitation or giving a talk. So, in this manner, 70% will retain or we tend to remember the 70% of it. And then, here comes now the 90%. Where does it come from? Okay? It's what we both say and do. Again, it both what we say and do. Okay. In here, you're going to do a dramatic presentation, simulating the real experience or doing the real thing. So, if you look into this, if you are doing the actual thing, then you tend to remember most of what you are learning. Okay. So, learning by doing. So, let the children do the task. Give them performance tests. And then, you will learn that they tend to remember most of what you have taught them. Okay, so if you look into here, this part, this is the nature of involvement. So the part here, this one is the verbal receiving. This one here is the visual, nakikita natin. Ito naman, we participate, we receive and participate. And of course, this is the most important one, wherein we do the exact thing or what we have been learning. Okay. Now, these are the guides of constructing performance task. Okay, the guidelines in constructing performance task. What are these? Okay. So, guided by the acronym GRASP, shared by Wiggins and Makting in 2004, these are the goal, okay, we have here the role, audience, situation, product, and standards and criteria indicators. So remember that Wiggins in 1987 says that authentic learning or authentic assessment is engaging worthy problems or questions of importance in which students must use knowledge to fashion performances effectively and creatively. The tasks are either replicas of an analogous to the kind of problems faced by adult citizens or consumers or professionals in the field. So, the following here is the guidelines in your constructing of your performance task. So, how do you come with the performance task guided by this, the GRASPS? Okay, let us look into this. First one is goal. In here, you are going to provide the statement. It is very important. Establish the goal of the task. State the problem, or you state the challenges or obstacles in the task. So remember what I have been always saying, if you prepare your lesson, the task or the assessment that you are going to give to your students, please be reminded that there is always a goal of the day. Okay? The lesson objectives, you have to stick on it. Will the assessment that you are going to prepare conform with the goal or the objectives? Okay? So, this is what we are saying. Now, example, in a science class, you are preparing a performance task. The goal may be this one. Okay, this is an example. So, the goal may be is instill health. Okay? Instill health consciousness among the young by particularly paying attention to their eating habits. So, this is now your goal. Okay? Ang goal mo ngayon ay to instill health consciousness among the young. Okay, so you have to set the goal first. That is very important. Next one, we have the role. Okay, this one. Role, you define the role of the students in the task. Anong gagawin nila? Anong dapat nilang gawin? Okay? State the job of the students for the task. Okay, so a while back, you have identified the goal. This time, the role of the students would be, okay, you are officers of the health club, and one of your objective as a club is to promote, okay, to promote health, okay, to promote health consciousness among the young. Okay, so that is the role. And the next one, we look into the audience. Okay. Audience, identify the target audience within the context of the scenario. Sino ang audience mo? Sino makikinabang dito? No? Okay. Para kanino yung gagawin mo? Okay, so in here, example is, if the activity here is making a brochure, okay, which is intended to instill health consciousness among the young by the officers of the health club, okay, which are your students, then the brochure is intended for all high school students in your school. So these are now the audience. Para kanino yung gagawin mong assessment, okay? So ito na. May goal ka na, may role ka na, may audience ka na. Okay. Next one, we have here the situation. In here, you are going to explain the situation. What's the context? Okay? What's the challenge? So, going back to our example a while back, here. So, most high school students are fond of junk food. So, that's the challenge now. Diba? Because in your goal, you are instilling health consciousness among the young people. Okay? Through preparing the brochure intended for high school students. Why is there a need to do, or what you call this one, to make a brochure, okay, on health? Because the situation is like this, okay? You explain the situation. What's the challenge? So the challenge here is, most of high school students are fond of junk foods and soft drinks. So a big number of students are obese and underweight. So that's the reason, that's the situation that you are addressing, okay, in preparing that certain assessment. Okay. Next one, we have here the product. Okay, so ano ngayon? Clarify what the students will create. Okay? Or why they will create it. Okay, so it says here, example, again, going back to the brochure a while back. Okay, ito na. So, the product would be, come up with a brochure on healthy eating habits. Okay? To address the goal that is instilling the health consciousness among the young. Okay? Through making the brochure. The reason why you are doing this, again, I repeat, was, you know, or you've seen that most high school students are fond of junk foods and soft drinks, and then a big number of students are obese and underweight. So you are trying to come up with a brochure on healthy eating habits. Now, you should be very specific in what type, okay, of brochure they are making. So you identify here that the brochure should, number 1, focus on healthy eating habits. Number 2, include graphics, of course, because it is a brochure. Diba? Pang brochure, may mga pictures talaga yan. May mga graphics yan. And then, of course, number 3, use simple and non-technical English language. Why do you need to use simple and non-technical English language? So that the high school students can easily understand your point. Okay? Remember that your audience are high school students. Okay, I hope that you are you understand what I'm saying. Okay. Next one, the last one would be standards and criteria. So, identify specific standards for success. So, okay, give rubric to the students or develop rubrics with their students. So, there are 2 ways here. Okay. However, you identify specific standards for success through giving the rubrics to your students so that they will know where to focus on. Okay, so you may give it to them and discuss to them, or you may want to develop it with your students. So, kasama sila sa pagbubuo ng rubric mo. Okay, so upon presenting the rubrics, then the students will know where to focus on. Okay, so here we are. The example would be, okay, you will be graded along with the following criteria. So, ito na ngayon yung criteria para doon sa inyong gagawing brochure. Okay, so, accuracy of content is 10 points. Organization of information is 10 points. Clarity of content is 10 points. Attractiveness or appearance of brochure is 10 points. And then grammatical accuracy, that is 10 points. Okay, so, I hope that you remember a while back the grasp. Okay, we have the goal. You have to identify the statement or the objectives of what you should do or the activity that you are giving to your students. You have the role. Define the role of the students of the task. Anong gagawin nila? Specific role or the job of the students. The audience. Okay. Sino ang babasa? Sino ang target mo? The target audience within the context of their scenario. We have S is situation. You have to explain the situation. Why did you come up with that certain task? Okay? We have the product. Okay? P is product. We have to clarify what the students will create. Okay, so in my example, they are creating a brochure. Why? Because their goal is to instill health consciousness among the young. What is the reason? What was the situation? I repeat again, they have seen that most high school students are fond of junk foods. That is why a big number of them are obese and underweight. And then, of course, we have the standards and criteria wherein, in here, you are going to explain the rubric, or you may want to develop the rubric with your students. So, that is how you are going to make a assessment task. let's move on to the guidelines for performance assessment. Okay, so Iration and Russell in 2008 cited 4 issues that must be considered in the use of performance assessment. So we have 4. Number 1, establishing a clear purpose. So again, in preparing a performance assessment, you should be very clear with your purpose. Okay. So, are you preparing or are you giving a performance assessment in order to assign a grade? Or is it to evaluate the student's progress? Or is it to generate products to be included in their learning portfolio of your students? Or to provide the students sample of work for an admission? Okay, so you should be clear. Why am I giving this performance assessment to my students? Okay, so maybe my purpose is to score them. Okay, then you have to make it clear at the beginning. Okay. Next guideline is identifying observable criteria. So, these criteria of good performance are made clear to students at the beginning of the teaching learning process to help them focus on their learning. These observable criteria also help the teacher or anyone assessing for that matter make his observations more systematic and focused. Number 3, providing an appropriate setting. So, let us take an example, a student teacher. Kayo halimbawa, a student teacher. So, will you observe the target behavior in a natural setting like observing a student teacher teaches as he teaches in a real classroom, or observe her in an announced and prepared demonstration teaching with her classmates acting as a student? So, you plan for the setting. Okay? Is it planned? Is it a prepared demonstration or no? Okay. So, as a rule of thumb, it is a good idea to observe the student on more than one occasion because a single performance might not fairly represent a student's knowledge or skill. Okay. And then the last one is judging or scoring the performance. To judge or score the product or the process behavior demonstrated, a scoring rubric is a must. Okay. I always say this to you that it is very important to prepare a scoring rubric. Why? To ensure objectivity of scoring. Do not just say, oh, maganda to. I'll give it 90 over 100. What is your basis? So you have to make a scoring rubric and be sure to discuss it with your students. And as I was saying a while back, you may create the scoring rubric with your students. Okay. So, this scoring rubric is very important, no? In judging or scoring the performance of your students. Always remember that. Okay. And the last one is the features of performance assessment. So, here are some features of performance assessments according to Hambleton in 1996. Let us look into these 5 features of performance assessment. Number 1, an emphasis on doing open-ended activities for which there is no correct objective answer and that may assess higher thinking. Okay, so in many performance assessment, there is no correct objective answer, unlike the true or false test or a multiple choice or a matching type test or a fill-in-the-blanks exam. So, for example, there is no one correct answer when a student comes up with a painting or a design of a science project. Okay. Or there is no specific correct answer when the student writes a research report, presents and defends this research before a panel. Okay? So, in performance assessment, students have choice to construct their own responses. This may pose greater challenge for scoring for the part of the teacher as compared to scoring traditional assessments, but give opportunity for students to develop higher level thinking skills. Number 2, direct methods of evaluation. Performance assessments are direct methods such as judging demonstration of advanced steps, oral presentations to assess speaking rather than asking students to enumerate the done steps in order to describe good oral presentation in a paper and pencil test. Okay, so direct method of evaluation. Let them do the done step instead of enumerating them. Self-assessment. In performance assessment, students may be given the opportunity to assess their own performance with the use of scoring rubric. Okay. Assessment of group performance as well as individual performance. I've been telling a while back that a performance assessment may come through an individual or a group performance. So, some performance assessments evaluate how students perform individually and how they perform as a group. A student may be directed to come up with a capstone project. They may be evaluated for the group's output and individually for the individual members' contribution. So, same story with reporting. No? There is a grade for the group performance, and then you are also being graded with your individual performance as individual members of that reporting group. Okay, extended period of time for assessment. So, one feature of performance assessment is the extended period of time. So, what is the meaning of this? In contrast to traditional assessment, performance assessment usually requires an extended period. So, isn't it that in your exam, in your quiz, your latest quiz, I have given you 1 hour to answer it, right? But in performance assessment, you can be given an extended period of time in doing this. So, in the traditional assessment, a written test may require 1 hour or less, but the completion of a research paper may require months or may be evaluated monthly to check on the students' progress. So, example, yung research na ginagawa ninyo, okay? So, your teacher may check it by parts, no? And then, it is being extended. So, you are given ample time to complete it. Unlike if it is a written exam, wherein you are only given a limited time to answer it, no? Why? Because if you will extend it, there is a great chance for you to cheat, right? If it's if it is a multiple choice and then we will give you 5 days to answer it, then of course, there is a great chance for you to cheat, no? So, this is one feature of the performance assessment that I like, the extended period of time for assessment. Okay, so I hope, my dear students, that this video have led you to the understanding of what the performance-based assessment is. So, if you have some queries or questions regarding the video, you may contact me with the following platforms. We have the official Facebook account, that is Astrid's Classroom. Our Instagram account is Mam Astrid. Our Twitter, RM Moonchild PH. And of course, we have our YouTube channel where you can watch again and again and again the videos of our lectures, that is Mam Astrid Classroom. Remember guys, sa ating classroom, lahat ay matututo kahit magkakalayo. So, thank you so much. Till our next video. Bye-bye.